Okay. Hey, everybody, this is Andrew Benjamin with the Devil's Lake Journal. With us, we have Gary and Cameron, the two directors of Odd Hours, Low, No Pay. Sorry, the title, Odd Hours, No Pay, Nice Hat, right?
Cool hat.
Cool
Cool
Hat, that's
hat.
it. I appreciate your time, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Thanks for
No,
having us.
no problem. Just so tell us, how did this project, how did it come to fruition?
It actually started with our executive producer, a guy named Peter Yoakum, who's a retired businessman, and he just became very passionate about the volunteer fire service, kind of understood kind of the dire needs that they were having in terms of recruitment and retention of new firefighters, and he just wanted to tell the story. So he had the idea to make a film about it, and then that brought us in to help make the film or to make the film.
And so when you were guys were just scouting fire departments, like how many did you choose from? Where were you looking at? Can you tell me about that process?
Yeah. So I mean, it was in the middle of COVID, so it was all very virtual for the first stages at least. And we put out this call for stories through the National Volunteer Fire Council, which was one of our partners on the project, and a number of other, fire related outlets, publications, blogs, those kinds of things, and got a huge response back. So just looking for all kinds of different stories, we ended up with 800 submissions around the country, across basically all 50 states, and had to kind of sift through those and just start taking all of this in. And we had gone into it knowing basically nothing about volunteer firefighters. So we're very quickly just kind of immersed in all of these stories from across the country and started having calls with all the different people from not all 800. We kind of narrowed it down, and Louise Collette, who's our casting director, really led the charge on that and helping really think about what are the stories we want to tell, what's the bigger picture here. And so ended up with 7 different locations that we actually ended up filming at from among those 800, but there were hundreds more that we could have focused on and probably would have had just as compelling stories to tell. So it's really, it's 700,000 volunteer firefighters across the country. So there's really a wealth of stories out there. And the hard part was definitely narrowing it down.
Yeah, I would just add to that. I think our goal was to really just show the diversity of the fire service and really show different types of people who are volunteer firefighters, different parts of the country, different types of, the different types of services that they provide to the communities that they serve.
I definitely I was one of the things that stood out was that we kind of think of firefighters as just fighting fires, helping people that are in car accidents. But I think the one I think it was in Nebraska, the ones that are like helping horses and cows getting
I
out
was
of
actually in Virginia, but
Virginia,
yeah,
excuse me,
yeah,
Virginia.
it's true. I mean, fighting fires is actually a pretty small part of what volunteer, firefighters do. And in fact, I think there's a line from one of the fire chiefs that says, we do anything, people call them for anything. And it's true. Like any kind of problem, whether it's accidents, whether it's, floods or, like say rescue situations. Yeah, but the story in Virginia was kind of fun because they kind of fell into uh, this service of rescuing large animals, and it kind of all started with a cow that fell in a pool, and they had to figure out how to get it out. And then all of a sudden, they realized, it's farm country out where they are, and they realized that there was a need to. That was the best way they could serve their community, or one of the ways they could serve their community, was helping with these accidents with large animals.
I'm curious to know from both of your perspectives, what did you guys learn from about volunteer fire departments, firemen, firewomen that you didn't know before you started making this movie?
I mean, kind of along those lines, like not only are the services that are provided so diverse and just such a wide range across the country, but I think one thing that I had my own preconceptions about who a firefighter was or what the person that was in that role, had to look like, had to be able to do. But just the range of people who were kind of coming together to help their community in different ways. That's really what this is about. So we had everything from, 16-year-olds up to like 73-year-olds who are all kind of serving in different roles. And, they need people who can do the logistics, who can do the scheduling, and who can do the PR, and who can do the photography, and can do, all these kind of different roles and different things that are needed. People who need to cook, everyone's got to eat. And so you can volunteer in all these different ways. So I think just kind of seeing the range of people. And we did select stories specifically to show kind of this range of things, but we were, jumping from one place to another that was so different, and just kind of connecting with different people who had led such different lives, who were at such different points in their lives, but all just kind of had this desire to serve their community. So that was definitely something that I did not, wasn't what I thought of when I thought of firefighters or volunteer firefighters going into it, and was a big part of our education, I think.
One of the I've always found it interesting, when it comes to a lot of public services, that we have actually volunteer firefighters. It seems more rare for like volunteer police. I mean, there is volunteer police, but it just doesn't seem like as prevalent as like firefighters. Why do you think that firefighting seems to be heavily I shouldn't say dependent, but there's more volunteers for that than maybe some other public services?
I think it's two parts. I mean, and one part of it is just tradition. They're just I think it started with Benjamin Franklin back in the day, and I think there's, especially like on the East Coast, I would say there's just been this tradition of volunteer fire departments, and so I think especially, I think it's, for the most part, they're in more rural communities and smaller communities around the country, but on the East Coast, you do see even in larger communities, there's still this kind of tradition of being a volunteer firefighter. And then in the smaller communities, we're talking about like we went into really small rural communities where they just don't really have the money to fund, a large fire department, and you know, where a hospital may be, you know, an hour or more away from, from a farm accident. They just, it's vital for them to have some type of service. So I just think it's just out of, the survival of their communities and their way of life, that they need these departments, and and
Yeah.
rely on them heavily.
And that was the story in multiple places that we heard about. Some of the ones that we filmed in was, they were maybe getting service from a paid department, but it was so far away that by the time that department got there, the fires had already destroyed the home and the damage was done. And, they got there and did what they could, but there was no one, local there who could respond in 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And that's really what makes the difference. So it's really this, and aside from that, that pushes up insurance costs and all these other things, side effects of it. So it's, these things could be provided by paid departments in some places, but it wouldn't be the same. And the flexibility and creativity, like, the large animal rescue in Virginia, that happen if it was just a paid department that was kind of, and not to lessen what paid firefighters do. They're crucial all across the country too, but there's a certain, sort of creativity and local awareness that comes from being people in that community, figuring out what their community needs. And they have a lot of pride in that, of course.
Now, when the movie when it did finish, I was like, oh, I feel like there's so much more that you guys maybe want to tell, but obviously you have the time of it. Do you guys, is that true? And if so, do you guys is there, I don't know, a sequel, or you guys going to be working on a follow-up or something?
Who knows? Yeah, there could be, definitely. There is so much to explore. I think, one of the challenges in the beginning of the movie was to decide if we were going to do a deeper dive into a couple of stories versus taking a broader approach and just trying to tell a more global story about, our collective story, I would say, around, the fire service in America. And I think we ended up opting for the broader story, just because, again, there's just so many, it's just such a broad story that we just wanted to give this kind of overview of what it was. But and so what, that mean we had limited time in the places that we went to, and we would have loved to have spent, rather than 3 or 4 days, a couple weeks in locations, and get deeper into, maybe into the personal stories of people.
I know we talked about the volunteer fire department in Virginia that helped animals that were in pool. Curious to know, what was the for each of you, most memorable experience while filming this? What did you get to witness?
I mean, so many options. I think one of the departments that I just really enjoyed filming at, and had some particularly intense moments, I think, was the one in Wheaton, Maryland, which was this, basically a suburb of DC. And so they're fairly urban, and they get a ton of calls. And so, starting at 5 p.m. they're fully volunteer. They have paid staff during the day, but starting at 5 p.m. it was all these young folks. That's where there were all these teenagers, so you would have like an ambulance or a fire engine that's like fully staffed by young adults, and they're just going nonstop from like 5 p.m. till like 6 a.m. the next day, just call after call after call. So just spending time there and kind of seeing that the dedication of those, young people, really diverse range of young people too, and some really intense calls there as well, and just kind of seeing how, they would go from hanging out at the station doing their homework and joking around, then all of a sudden the alarm would go off, and 3 minutes later they're in the middle of the road, like literally saving lives after a really terrible car crash. So I think those just the juxtaposition of those things, just the like camaraderie and this like fire family aspect of it, that, this is just a huge part of people's lives and brings so much like richness and joy to their lives to kind of have this kind of new second family, or to, feel a sense of belonging and all of that. But then to also like at the drop of a hat, be out there really doing something meaningful. So I think that those moments of just like flipping the switch definitely are stuck in my head.
Yeah, and I think from the campsite, it's hard to pick a single story. I think one of the things that I really enjoyed was moving from location to location. And so we had done, I think the second story we worked on was in Exeter, Nebraska, and it was a farming community with 500 people, or I mean everybody literally knew everybody, and since they were little kids, and just seeing that, that kind of piece of America that we don't really get to see that often and have that experience. And then we went from there directly to Muncie, New York, into a Hasidic Jewish community, which again, a whole nother type of community that most people don't get a chance to experience, and seeing just the differences and actually the similarities between these two communities, and because tight-knit communities who, really were just trying to, keep their community safe, and but going from this little farm town in Nebraska to a Hasidic Jewish community in upstate New York was quite a contrast. And but it was fun.
Hmm. And I know that this documentary has made quite an impact legislatively. And but so with that being said, what would you hope that people, when they watch this, get from it? It sounds like already has made changes, but beyond that, what else do you hope that people get when they watch it? When they watch it?
Yeah, I mean, from the beginning, the goal of this project was that it, should have impact, and we were tried to be strategic along the way in every decision of like what should the impact of this film be, and really it's about people seeing that this is something that they could do, people understanding what it means, and seeing people that, look like them, or that communities that represent their communities, and feeling like this is something they might be able to step up and do, and hopefully, challenge some preconceptions they had. So there's been hundreds of community screenings, impact screenings at departments. It's free to use for departments to do recruiting events around this film, and it's now having its screenings on PBS stations around the country as well, which hopefully will amplify that even further. So that's really the first goal, is helping with that direct need. There's a huge need, and so hopefully people can kind of step up and see that it's something they could contribute to. But I think more generally than that, the point of the story was to show communities across the country and people across the country who are stepping up just for their neighbors, and that kind of neighborly attitude that's really a core part of this country at a time when things feel really divisive. This story from the beginning, the idea was, hopefully this is a story that is unifying and that transcends a lot of divisions that we might have in other areas of life right now. So I think hopefully people take that away as well, even if they're not somewhere where they can, go down the street and go to their volunteer fire department. There are other ways to kind of embody that, I think, in your life, and to find hope, hopefully, in that.
Great. And I know that October 28th will be airing nationally on PBS. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. And there's air dates at oddhoursfilm.com has the full set of air dates. So that's the big national day on October 28th, but there's a range of other air dates happening as well. So definitely check out the list.
Okay, great, great. And I just want to, with the last minute I have, you guys, if you have any last comment or statement you'd like to make about your movie.
No, I guess for me it was just an honor to make the film. Like Cam said, I think going into it, we really didn't know that much when Peter contacted us about the volunteer fire service. So it was it was kind of an explorative journey for us, and I think we just came out of it with such a respect for the work that these people are doing, and like Cam said, it's just a film that kind of rises above a lot of the divisiveness that's going on in the country today. And so I think we were just really happy to put something out there in the world that is positive and make you just feel a little bit better about your neighbors and in your country.
Great, great. We've been talking to Gary and Cameron, directors of Odd Hours, No Pay, Cool Hat. Documentary will be airing on October 28th and additional dates as well, which you can check out online. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And yeah, I hope get more people get to see it with the airings that are coming up. Thank you so
Great.
much.
Andrew.